Okay, got a different angle this time. Trying something new. Um, so I realized that the last time that I was going over something, an idea that that I had a better point than what I thought I did. So one of the problems I always run into is complete thoughts, I guess. This is my wand from Universal Studios. Um, and so I do like, I'm not denying that I don't like constantly revert to dumb analogies. And when I say dumb analogies, I don't mean that they don't make sense, but like people don't always see the connection that I'm trying to make. But that's how I like always explain things to myself and have understanding of something for myself. So in the scenario that was given, not in this book and not in these, because these are my French books. Hold on, that's not yet either. Here we go. This is it. There was two separate doomsday scenarios given in the context of philosophy and how humans react to life and death, to explore the concept of what death is, because we can't, you don't have people coming back from the grave to tell us what death is like. And even the people we do have who die and come back to life, yeah, you see a lot of the same accounts, but I mean, try explaining something you don't understand, so you just like you just see a bunch of flashing colors while if you die or you see certain images, what do these things mean? Is something that we'll never be able to truly know. But something that I thought was an interesting thing that I read into theory wise was that if your soul leaves your body, and this is the wildest thing that I think I've ever heard, and it makes a lot of good sense. But say I had a piece of paper, I laid a piece of paper on top of a desk next to me. So so if I'm on my deathbed, and I'm laying on my bed and I'm about to die, and I lay a piece of paper that has something written on it, like in big letters where you can clearly see it, sitting on top of a counter, like up here. And then I'm on my bed and I die. And if my soul leaves my body, I'd be able to see what the paper says. Sounds like a good idea. No one's been coming, but like you don't know, right? You're not going to be in a room, you're like, and just know when somebody's going to die. So it's kind of like a pre-planned thing. And if you do pre-plan it, there's no guarantee that they're going to come back to life. So it's not a foolproof plan, but I guess everybody just needs to start leaving pieces of papers up, that way if somebody comes back down from the heavens, tell us if you saw what was on that paper. So anyways, but I don't understand though is they knew, so I spoke last time that was like about a doomsday scenario of world ends 30 days after you die, fiery destruction, but only you knew that was going to happen. But in this scenario, everybody knows it's going to happen because it's an infertility scenario. So say everybody just woke up tomorrow and everybody was infertile. The point that was put forward by this right here. So Thomas Nagel on the philosophy of altruism. I think is what this comes from. Infertility scenario. So basically, like the guy says, like for my purpose, however, it is not necessary that all the details of James' version of the story should be found convincing, nor is it necessary to arrive at a settled conclusion about the exact range of activities whose perceived value would be eroded in an infertile world. All that is necessary is to suppose that in such a world, people would lose confidence in the value of many things, and activities would cease to see reason to engage in the many familiar sorts of pursuits, and would become emotionally detached from many of those activities and pursuits. As I have said, this seems plausible to me, and I hope that it will seem plausible to you too. So let me just stipulate that this assumption, which I will call the afterlife conjecture, is true. I take the afterlife conjecture to have implications of a number of different kinds. Perhaps the most striking of these has to do with the nature and limits of our egoism. We are all rightly impressed by the power and extent of our self concern. And even the most ardent defenders of morality feel the need to argue that for what Thomas Nigel called the possibility of altruism, in the face of the more or less universal assumption that our default motivations are powerfully self-interested. But consider this: every single person now alive will be dead in the not too distant future. This is fact is universally accepted and is not seen as remarkable, still less as an impending catastrophe. There are no crises meeting of world leaders to consider what to do about it. No outbreaks of hysteria, no outpourings of grief, no demands for action. This does not mean that individuals do not fear their own deaths. To the contrary, many people are terrified of death and wish to desperately survive for as long as possible. Despite this, neither the recognition of their own mortality nor the prospect that everyone now alive will soon die leads to most people to conclude that few of their worldly activities are important, worth pursuing. Of course, many people do find themselves, through bad luck or lack of opportunity, engaged in activities that do not seem to them worthwhile. Similarly, many individuals do at some point in their lives experience episodes of depression or despair, and the tragedy of suicide remains an all too common occurrence. But relatively little to this, I venture to say, is explained by reference to impact on people of the recognition that all Earth's current inhabitants will somehow die. Not only is that fact not regarded as catastrophic, it is not even on anybody's list of the major problems facing the world. You may be tempted to say that it is not seen as a major problem because it is known to be inevitable. People have accepted the fact that everyone will now live and die, and nothing will be done about it. Yet in the infertile world, the disappearance of the human race is also widely understood to be inevitable. But it is regarded as catastrophic. In James' vivid depiction, it is regarded as catastrophic whose prospect precipitates an unprecedented global crisis and exerts a profoundly depressive effect on many familiar human motivations. And if, as the afterlife conjecture supposes, at least the core of this depiction is accurate, the implication seems clear in certain concrete functional motivational respect. The fact that we and everyone we love will cease to exist matters less to us than with the non-existence of a future with whom we do not know and who indeed have no detrimental identities. Or to put it more positively, the coming into existence of people we do not know and love matters more to us than our own survival and the survival of the people we know and love, even allowing for the likelihood that some portion of our concern for these future people is a concern for survival of a particular group with which we specifically identify. This is a remarkable fact should we get more attention than it does thinking about the nature and limits of our personal egoism. And in the notes, it says, here it seems
Worth mentioning, Dan Muller's interesting argument, the effect that the participants in loving relationships have much less importance for one another we normally suppose. Muller bases his argument on empirical findings, which suggest that participants in such relationships are surprisingly resilient in the face of loss of a partner or spouse. There is a superficial similarity between Muller's claim about the relative unimportance that spouses and partners have from one another, and my claim that in some respects our own survival and the survival of the people we love matters less to us than the existence of our future people. Okay, there's more to that in his notes, but I don't want to keep. I want to get to the point that I was trying to make. So let me go to my notes. So one of the things he said was that, all right, so like if I'm married and my spouse dies, most people go remarry. On rare occasions, do you see someone, say, I mean, like if they're 60 or 70, those are typically the ages where people aren't really trying to rekindle. It's just like the mold, what does it matter? My spouse died. We were together 40 years. Obviously, you have certain factors in like that. However, in the context of we value future generations more, so from a non-religious perspective, we have books that we can date back to, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is basically the story of a king who goes on this journey and comes back. He's like, oh, the meaning to life is legacy. It's like, we can't live forever. We're all going to face death one day. So the only way that we cannot die is by creating temples and statues and doing great works, or living a good life so that people remember our name well. And that was the non-religious standpoint to it, in which people live by, and that's why you have people with ethics and morality who are also have never been religious in a day in their life. Because if I have a society where I just start dictating who I want to kill because I don't agree with them, there would be other people in society and be like, well, I don't agree with you, and then you just have a bunch of chaos. So you do have to have a code of ethics, even if you're not religious, or otherwise you're always going to constantly be at war. And we would be like other animals in the wild, where we had lions, like where two lions come to meet, together because they both want the same lioness. It basically is the reason why humans have overpopulated the earth, because we have the capacity to think above our emotions, and so we don't just have a bunch of people going around killing each other over various things. Like we created a code of ethics, and in doing so, we've created unity that no other animals have to the mass that we do. And so I don't agree with, I personally don't agree that people don't care about in the moment, like with the scenario with the spouse. I don't think that remarrying means that you didn't care. It just means that you have to make yourself feel good in the moment. You only have, say you have 80 years on the earth. I was married for 40 of them, or turned 20, say I got married 40 years. I'm 60, she dies. I'm going to live to 80, but I don't know that. It's one of those things of like, I can't live my life in grief after that. I have to do something, or I'll go down the road of suicidal thinking, because I'm grief stricken and I'm in a constant state of depression, and because depression is a permanent state of sadness, not just sadness itself. Sadness is in the moment. When you become in the perpetual state of losing meaning, that's where which can be triggered by sadness and many other emotions. But a point that I made, and I have a book called An Addendum of Truth, which I have on Amazon, and you can find it under the name of Shaunpoole, and it is Sean Poole. And in here, I update it pretty often whenever I have more things to add into it. And it's not meant to be some kind of academic piece. It's just my personal thoughts on a lot of things. So, but I will say that, like, sometimes, like I mentioned, like some like crazy conspiracy theories. I think they're true. But the point is not whether or not they're true. The point is the connection to be made in certain thought processes. But what I said, because in the case of infertility, saying that everybody's worried about continuing on their name. They would rather, so the reason why we come up with religion is because we don't want to die. Humans are afraid of death. We don't want to die. And if you start thinking about it, you'll have an existential crisis. It is where you start contemplating the meanings of life and death to a point where it gives you anxiety attacks and all kinds of stuff. Because I do a lot of philosophy. So his thing was that people don't care, or people care more about the continuance of life. And well, he didn't say continuance, but I call it continuance because the basis of religion is continuance. So I don't want to die. So I say, if I do good things, I'll be reincarnated and I'll live again. If I do good things, God will let me into his kingdom. And so that's the basis foundation of religion. As I get eternal, like when Jesus is talking in the Bible, he's like offering people eternal life. It's like, oh, you have eternal life through God. So you're continuing on. But however, non-religious people, for their idea of continuation was things like generational wealth, having a good family name, having a good standing in life, impacting people in a positive way so that I am always remembered. So if I write a book and it's a good book and everybody buys it, I have now cemented my legacy through the course of history, therefore gave myself eternal life. And it's the same continuality concept from whether you're religious or you're not religious. But in this infertility scenario, you now eliminate continuance from human nature. And this is where I said in my academic scenario, I was like, I don't really mean to get into personal choices and personal issues, but I said, we already see this through birth control and contraceptives. And I don't say that as a meaning of whether or not you should take them. I say that in the meaning of the implications of the psyche when you're on these that people don't think about. So to note on that before I delve into this, I want to say that every society, or not every society, but most societies that we record in history that are significant. So like the Roman Empire. Let me see something. I'm going to look this up to make sure I'm about to accurately say this. I know the Roman Empire did, but there are more. Okay, so ancient Rome, medieval Europe. Oh, don't wait. No, medieval Europe was not. Okay, so apparently in modern Europe and modern Japan and ancient Rome. Um, okay. So you see things like one-child policies, economic factors, and changing social attitudes. So in certain societies of ancient China and with something that we also saw with Greeks and Romans, we noticed that when these societies became at their peak heights, that there was more opportunity in the world so that I didn't have to. So, like, if I'm a woman and I'm living in ancient Rome and everything is really great, we have all these jobs and all of this stuff, I no longer need a man to take care of me. So, like, if you're out in the wild where you're living, like, I don't know what the academic term would be, but as like basic biological beings, uh, no different than chimpanzees and monkeys and lions and tigers and bears. Sorry to throw in uh, whatever that movie's called, where he's like lions, tigers, and bears. Um, so people begin to shift away now from the legacy carrying on, because now everything they don't have to do that anymore. They have options other than making a family, because making a family is based on continuance. And since making a family is based on continuance, if I eliminate the need of continuance, which would be fertility, then now I have a society that no longer operates under the impressions and pushes of continuance. Meaning, this is where you coin in phrases of, I want to live my best life. I don't want to have to focus on having a kid. I don't want to have to focus on raising a family. I don't want to be responsible for this stuff, because now you've created a society where you don't have to do these things. Now you can focus on your career. You can focus on just yourself, your name and yourself. And these are things that we hear now more in society than what we did 10, 20, 30, 60 years ago. And this isn't the first time it happens. You have all of these doomsday people who are like, oh, the world's ending. Like, no, this is just the repetition of society. Now we're just in the phase of where you see issues of gender and issues of, like, what can I be other than being a family person? Like, there's more to life than just, raising kids. And that's all fine and dandy and everything. Like, if that's the life that you want to live, like, I don't, me personally, I don't see a problem with anybody choosing to live their life in any way they want to. But that doesn't mean that we should just ignore the problems that come into play when we start to do these things as a society as a whole. And that's where everything always gets messed up and topsy-turvy, and nothing just makes sense anymore. hold on. So, like ancient Greece was a non or was not a monolithic entity, but rather a collection of independent states like Athens, Sparta, and like also Corinth. I think Macedonia was in there. Might be wrong on that one. But in many city-states, women had limited roles in public life, but women in Sparta had more rights and responsibility than those in Athens. And later Roman writers and Christian commentators kind of argued that the decline of the Roman Empire was due to moral decadence, which included various sexual behaviors. However, the view was largely retrospective and moralistic, not a historical analysis. But the statistics of those times did correlate with emperors. Emperors like Augustus implemented laws to encourage marriage and childbearing among Roman elites, and there was concerns about declining birth rates among that group. Such laws suggested there were societal shifts in family and gender roles. And so it's not like these things are the primary reason, because they also had invaders that also came in. But because like society had started to become so easy, you started to have less warriors. And over time, Roman women, especially in the upper class, gained more freedoms. And since they gained more freedoms for including property and running businesses, they no longer needed to have kids. And since they no longer needed to have kids, you had less kids, which also, gave you less warriors, gave you less minds. Because, if I have 100 people that were just born and 50 of them have great minds and 50 of them are great warriors, that's awesome. Now, if I have 50 kids, now only 25 can be great minds and only 25 of them great warriors. And that's under the impression that 25 of them are great minds and 25 of them are great warriors, because you also have to take in the fact that you're going to have people that don't have great minds that aren't great warriors. And so now, now those people, they got to do something different, because, if you try to, take somebody and take them out onto the battlefield and they weren't a great warrior, and then they die, and then now you have the invaders, they win the war. And, that's a common sense. But, that's a realistic issue there. And so one of the things that the points that he was making was that, that people, oh, geez, my keys fell over there and I just freaked out. Anyways, but he's saying that people would be grief stricken and that they would lose these ideas of continuance, and that things would start to become meaningless. And that was what was portrayed. And you'd have a whole society of just meaningless actions from what was going on here. And I 100% disagree with that. Well, actually, I take it back. I don't 100% disagree. I like 75%. And here's why. Because grief is just a stage in it. So if you're someone who can't critically think above their emotions, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of emotional control and a lot of studying in yourself and what works for you, so that when someone does something to you, you don't just react to it. You think about it, you process it, and now you act. So because if you say something mean to me and I immediately respond and react with something slick back, I created an emotional thought and an emotional reaction. But if you say something to me that I don't like and I sit there and I think about it and I'm like, okay, why did you say that to me? Why are you mad? Why are you upset? Should I be mad? Should I be upset? When I think about those 5 things, now I can say something back that isn't just a rebuttal or an emotional rebuttal to what you said to me, because I'm mad. Now I'm actually thinking and processing. I'm like, okay, I can say something like, if you said that I was ugly, I'd be like, well, doesn't everybody just have different personal preferences? So like, if you say that I'm ugly, like that doesn't mean that somebody else is going to think the same thing. So I mean, you just don't, like, to me, what goes through my head is like, you just sound stupid when you say that, because that's just your personal opinion. And so I can go somewhere else and have somebody else say the complete opposite. So your words are meaningless and useless, and you're just trying to do it to make me feel bad, which in turn makes you a bad person. What is so and that's the way that I look at things. But and he says that people would start to lose meaning in activities and stuff. And so what I try to do is I try to give a scenario, and I shouldn't have. I guess I got to stop giving these scenarios out of conspiracy theories, because the person thought that I was going a completely different direction. But I was trying, but I was trying to give the direction. So they told me, they said, you said that the point was that values flip and everybody will now live in pleasure. And I was like, yeah. And then I started to explain it, and he was like, that is not where I thought you were going to go with this. I was like, no, it is. I was like, you just gotta let me get that. Like, I'm giving you if I can get an unplausible scenario, I can give you an unplausible scenario reply back. But apparently that's not the case. So what I said was, in this hypothetical scenario, we explore the profound implications of altering the fundamental human desire for continuity and the fear of mortality. Human consciousness enables us to grapple with existential questions, leading to the development of concepts such as hope, legacy, and the dread of death. The pursuit of continuity, whether through religious beliefs in an afterlife or the aspirations to leave a lasting legacy, has profoundly shaped human culture and civilization, providing individuals with a sense of purpose and solace in the face of mortality. However, in a world where the notion of continuity is eradicated, a profound transformation in human values and priorities becomes apparent. In the absence of the desire for continuity, individuals may redirect their focus toward immediate pleasures and experiences, akin to the hypothetical scenario depicted in a satirical portrayal of A Bug's Life from Robot Chicken in the early 2000s. So a bug's fleeting existence in popular culture is what I said. While this shift towards immediate gratification and primal behavior may be illustrative of the profound impact that the concept of continuity has on human values, it is important to recognize the multifaceted nature of human behavior, influenced by an array of factors, including cultural norms, personal experiences, and social contexts. Moreover, this transformation is not purely hypothetical. It finds parallels in the evolving patterns of human behavior observed in contemporary society. A growing segment of the population is choosing not to have children, a trend supported by various statistics. This decision is influenced by factors such as the availability of contraceptives, options, and a desire for a lifestyle unburdened by the responsibilities of parenthood. Some individuals articulate their choice as a desire to live their best life without the encumbrance of children. This sentiment often translates into a pursuit of personal pleasures and experiences unencumbered by the obligations of raising a family. And when I say pleasures and experiences, I'm not just talking about relationships. I'm also talking in the context of for me, myself, like I buy material things to make myself feel good in that moment. I go and get a job and create all of these things as society so that I can buy things to make my life better before I die. So like going to a theme park. So like I have my wand, like this was a pleasure item. Like I went there and I was like, oh, this looks cool. Wave this around, pull, act like a wizard, have fun while I'm still alive. It has nothing to do with continuality. Okay, that's in the moment, and it's not something of critically thinking above our emotions to figure something out to better a future. These reflections delve into the complex relationship between human emotions, abstract beliefs, and the quest for a meaning in life, contributing to the ongoing philosophical discourse on the human condition. Of our understanding of individuals' sexual activity is influenced by a complex interplay of factors, including personal values, beliefs, cultural norms, access to contraceptives, and individual circumstances. It's important to avoid making broad generalizations about people's behavior based solely on the presence of absence of the risk of pregnancy. Contraceptive methods have, but their stereotypes get created for a reason, because most humans conform, and when you start to conform to other people's ideas, you're like, it's like somebody says something or they do something, and they're like, oh, that looks nice. So if I see someone living in a mansion who has no kids, and they're like, and I go up to them and ask them, well, how'd you get this mansion? And they're like, well, I didn't have to waste my money on kids. And like, now it's like, oh, that's a good idea. I want what you have. Let me not have kids so I can go buy a mansion. And that's how conformity starts to happen with humans. And so contraceptive methods have played a significant role in the providing of individuals with greater control over their reproductive choices. When contraceptives is readily available and used effectively, it can reduce the risk of unintended pregnancy. Some individuals may feel more comfortable engaging in sexual activity when they have access to reliable contraceptives because it can alleviate concerns about pregnancy. Yes, that's me kind of just saying hookup culture in a more academic setting, but that's what it is at the most basic level. However, sexual behavior is highly individual, and people's choices regarding when, with whom to engage in sexual activity are influenced by a wide range of personal, social, and cultural factors. It's essential to approach this topic with sensitivity and respect for individual choices and circumstances. So as I've said, I don't care what you do. I am just giving you, people need to know that whatever choices that you do make always have ripple effects in the world and in the universe. Everything. Because everything is connected, interconnected, interconnectivity. The universe is everything. Close your eyes. All the images you're seeing are images that you'll see in the universe with light reflections and everything. For me, so you always need to know the effects of your choices, no matter what those choices are. For many individuals, the pursuit of a good life and a desire to leave a meaningful legacy are powerful driving forces in a secular context. The aspiration to create positive impact on the world and be remembered for one's contributions can lead people to live virtuous lives, making choices that benefit society and the generations to come. On the other hand, some individuals, including those with less conventional paths, may seek to build a legacy through material wealth or power, sometimes through means that society deems as questionable. The motivation to provide a better future for one's descendants, whether through personal values or through more unconventional routes, underscores the enduring human desire to ensure the continuance of their impact of the world even beyond their own lifetime. Moreover, the notion that society would simply stagnate in grief and despair in the absence of continuity is only the initial step of the complex emotional journey. This transition can be observed in real life scenarios, such as an opioid, such as our opioid epidemic, where individuals grappling with grief and emotional pain often seek solace in substances that provide temporary relief from their suffering. The human psyche, resilient and adapted, has the capacity to move beyond grief and shift its focus towards pleasure and desire as a coping mechanism in the face of an uncertain and non-continuous world. The transition highlights the intricate relationship between human emotions, coping strategies, and the pursuit of happiness amid changing circumstances, and exemplified in the context of hypothetical scenarios such as the infertile doomsday scenario. So also to that was, so my example was, because I don't think it's conspiracy theory, but some people do. The reason why I don't think this is conspiracy theory is because I was in the military and I know what they really did. But I gave the scenario of, well, say if you're a leader of a pharmaceutical company, and we've had trials where people have said that they've cured cancer, and we've told people, well, you can't use that treatment or whatever, it's not safe. But then in the course of the trial, they're like, well, we cured, 5 people of cancer with it and nobody died. And, so we do have a lot of trials of that have came up about certain contexts of that. And there was also a man who was using herbs to heal AIDS patients. And, that's a trial that nobody talks about. And that's not the point that I'm trying to get into. But, so if you take it, you're a pharmaceutical company. And because of continuance, I want to create generational wealth. So you see this with families like the Rockefellers, who made tried to connect the United States through train tracks, and so their family's not dead. Their family's still rich, and their family is still rich because they created things. They created legacies in life, which still gave their kids money in an empire. And so because of that, so say if I'm a pharmaceutical company in my conspiracy theory world where everything is known to be true, my selling pitch to people is hope. And that's why I brought up hope in that, because hope is the hope and continuance. Like, I hope that things get better for you. It's a continuance phrase for the future. And so when I go to advertise my treatments for cancer, I say to people, well, I might be able to give you 10 or 20 more years of your life if you can make it through my cancer treatment. And so you sell them a pitch of hope. You're like, oh, well, you're going to die, but I might be able to help you to give you a little more life here. And the reason why that's used like that is because, or the reason why I feel like that's used like that is because we unknowingly make a connection that say I'm a religious person, okay, and so I know when I die, I'm gonna go to I don't think you'll heaven, but I know when I'm gonna one day enter the kingdom of heaven. So, but heaven will come to earth. But that's besides the point. But I am saying that in the continuality of it is that since I know that my life will continue on after I'm dead, if you were to offer me cancer treatment and I know that I'm going to continue on after I'm dead, a lot of people don't a lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to take the cancer treatment. I'm going to go be with the Lord. That's a phrase that people say. And so when you give people these pitches of the hope scenario, like, oh, we might be able to cure you, you're now giving them the impression that, like, I might be able to give you a little more time on earth to experience things, even though I know that you'll be continued on, whether it's through legacy or whether it's through religious values or religious beliefs. Since you have continuance, you have to sell pitch to people like that, because hope is a very strong emotional aspect to the human psyche. And to the counter end of that, if you don't have continuality, now what becomes more valuable is the immediate time that you have on the earth, because now I can't leave a legacy. Now I can't continue on and set up future generations, which you have to take in hand that in the account of, if we all just woke up tomorrow and everybody was fertile in that account, religious people would more so, the majority of religious people should more so stay in their same context, because they would assume, oh, this is the end of the world. We're all going to die. And we're all going to go to God. However, for the people that aren't truly believers like that, and they'll think, well, this is the doomsday, And now that they don't have a lasting legacy, now whatever you can give them in the moment is what matters the most. And you could call that a revert back to biological tendencies and like following things in your emotion. It's just whatever makes you feel good in that time, because I don't have to worry about a continuation. The world's going to end. Everyone's going to die off. So I don't have to leave generational wealth. I don't have to create an empire for my kid. I don't have to raise a family because I can't even get a family. There's no more continuation thought. So if there's no more continuation thought, yes, you would eventually have people, you would have people sitting there contemplating like, wow, I only get 80 years of life and that's it. Like there's nothing more to this. Like whole human race annihilated. 80 years is what we got. I'm going to be the last person alive at 80. Everybody else is going to be dead. We can't even have kids. Like this, like you're going to start having exponential crisis on that. So where do you find, where do you get out of that? Through pleasures in life. And so the grief-stricken part is just the first initial step in it. And for people who live in their emotions, they're going to follow down that path. And for the people who try to live above that, where they, you know, they're like, well, I don't want to just be a slave to my, I don't want to be a slave to my sin, or I don't want to be a slave to just whatever emotions come about and just, you know, do things just because they make me feel good. I want to do things because I've thought them through and I think that this is the best option for me. And so without the need for continuance, that becomes a much more rare thing, because the only continuance that you have now is people of religious values. And even in religion context, I mean, yes, all religions basically say that, the door is narrow for believers. Abrahamic faiths say that. Buddhist monks say that, they like that these lives are not for the weak-hearted or the weak-minded. Well, they don't say that, but they heavily imply it, in my opinion, on some stuff. But and then actually some faiths do come out and say that. So there's that. So so in that case, the only people that you have not living out of their emotions is religious people. And even then, you're going to have people walk away from the faith, just as you would if you're having people walk in the faith. And so in my conspiracy theory scenario, to finish that up, was that now I'm going to start selling you cures to cancer. Because what good does it do for me to treat you on the basis of hope if now I can cure you and cure your cancer, get your money, steal, and then go live my pleasurable life before I die? Because basically what I was the point that I was trying to connect into that was that if there really was an evil person who was, killing off people who can actually cure cancer, and their reasoning was, oh, I want to make sure that my kid is treating these people or treating people. Actually, no, they really are treating people with chemotherapy. Sorry, with quotation marks, but treating people through chemotherapy, even though I know I'm not even giving them the right strands and stuff, because they can't afford the research that would actually go into this treatment to make it work properly, and that's why it works for some and not for others. Or one of the reasons why it works for some and not for others. But now, as an evil person who has no moral concept, who's not a religious person, who's not even they're already not even trying to live a good life, dude doesn't care. It's just, I want to set up my kid so that he's not broke living a bad life in the future. So I'm setting up this thing where we're constantly going to treat people through generations. Well, now my idea comes, well, now I don't have continuality. Now I don't have kids. Now I don't have a legacy to leave behind or an empire to give to somebody. And so now I want to cure your cancer. Now I'm like, okay, well, here's 40 more. I'm curing you. Here's 40 more years. Now I'm going to go live my life of pleasure because I just got your money. But in exchange for taking all, so if you only had $5,000, I took you $5,000, cured your cancer. Now you have $0, but now you have the opportunity to live 40 more years of a pleasurable life before you die of old age. Because otherwise, either you're going to take the cancer and you're going to die, or you're going to have a rise in a suicidal epidemic, which those two things will happen regardless. But I do not believe that they will happen in the mass that we think that it would. I think that most people would just turn to in the moment living, because there's no longer continuality. If you no longer have continuality, what else is there to live for but in the moment? And that's my philosophy for today that I kind of started in the last thing, episode, but then continuing on now. And that also actually ties into something else that I wrote in my book that I wanted to say. I said, so I said that people seek solace through drugs in this scenario. So, I said that people who use drugs seek solace, and I had mentioned previously in my book that hold on, I gotta find this. A Bible verse, Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in the heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Within these lines, Jesus extends an invitation for respite from these burdens by existential fears, doubts, or deeper questions about the fabric of reality itself. So how I'm saying that the lack of continuality would lead to people resorting to in the moment pleasure activities is a basis that religions already speak about. Because if you don't have continuality and that's what you're thinking about, and you resort to things to get your mind off of the fact that you don't have long to live, or that your life is like one and done, that's where people go in religion. And you see this verse here, it's, come to me, all are weary and burdened, I will give you rest. It's the same concept of living in the moment to give your mind rest of the thought that there is no continuality. Now, in the scenario that I was referring to of the robot chicken thing, was if you only have 24 hours to live, like some bugs do, you don't have time to sit there and critically think about your life. You're in a panic mode. So like if I was to bring in a human if I was to just like copy myself, and I told him, I was like, you only have, and he had my mind and everything, and I said, you only have 24 hours to live. He is going to freak out, and he is going to probably go get drunk, do a bunch of drugs, have sex with a bunch of random people, and that's it. What else is? There's nothing else to think about. You're like, whoa, wait, what? I only have 24 hours to live. You don't have time to sit here and think about anything. You start to go into a panic, because that's the typical human reaction to existential things like that. And now you just go and live in the moment, live in the emotions of whatever makes you feel good. Because you don't have, I mean, you don't, there's not, you're not going to sit down and think, okay, like what's going to happen? Like 24 hours is like a very, very short time period to sit there and try to figure something out. Now, when you have 80 something years, like human beings do, well, now we start to sit and we come up with concepts of religion. We come up with concepts of like the Epic of Gilgamesh for continuality. And so, yeah, when you remove continuality, you will see a major shift in values. What was wrong will become right, and what was right will become wrong, because you have a whole different setup in a system now. So when you live in a world where now we offer contraceptives to people, that is why you see such a massive change in the shift. So you in the shift of values, and whether what your religious beliefs or not, that is what's in the world for us. And obviously there's that's not to say that there aren't other multiple factors in that, but this is definitely one of the biggest driving ones, because death is definitely something that, even though people don't, maybe not everybody thinks about, but is something that will always be on the mind of every human being, whether or not you think it is or not, because there are subconscious thoughts that you have that you may not know is actually driving you to do things. And I think that's basically about all I have to say. Again, if anybody, it's An Addendum of Truth by Sean Poole, ShaunPoole. And sorry about, I'm not claiming that the literature or anything is good, but it's just a lot of ideas. Some of it may be kind of jumbled, but I have added points in it. So like at the end of every chapter, I kind of give a recap of what all my points and connections are that I'm trying to make. And I also got this the other day. And I now have title of work, The Lost One, year completion, 2023, short story. And I wanted to see how the Amazon publishing works, so I made a little short story about a kid, and how he's navigating through the world and watching how people don't pay attention to the world around them because they only pay attention to the momentary things that are in front of them. And it's a very sad story. Anyway, so also if you want to buy that, it's on there. I appreciate, because I just make YouTube videos and podcasts. But I was also in the military, so I also have like a lot of benefits, and I go to school from and everything. So I'm not broke. And I also do other things to make money. But also I'm going to start a nonprofit for veterans to readapt into society, because as a veteran who goes to school, people do not understand what the hell I'm talking about. And but to me, it makes a lot of sense. But then I'll pop off when somebody wants to get slick with me, like they did the other day, this past week, and I'll just start explaining quantum physics and to show like, hey, actually, I do know what I'm talking about. I just don't communicate to you well. Like there's a difference in being dumb, and there's a difference in just not knowing how to communicate, and that's a problem that we come into with mental illnesses and everything. And people don't understand that, especially in academic settings, is what I've come to learn. It's like if you can't communicate the idea properly, they just think that you don't understand it. And actually, it's the complete opposite, because Einstein said if you understand it, you can simplify it. If you can't simplify it, you don't understand it. So if I can talk about it in simple terms, that means I understand it. If you have to talk about it in big terms, then you're the one who starts to lose understanding in it, because it's how I said at the basis of, if I say don't drink, but I can't tell you why not to drink, now my words become useless. That's why you always have to be able to simplify things. Anyways, thank you for watching another hour long of my podcast. If anybody actually watches the whole hour, but appreciate you all. Thank you.